Picture this, an empire teetering on the brink, torn apart by internal treachery, ruthless barbarians, and crumbling discipline. Amidst the chaos emerges a hero, Claudius Gothicus, the man whose iron will and strategic brilliance not only stopped the marauding Goths, but also saved Rome from itself. But here's the twist. It wasn't just his victories on the battlefield that made Claudius legendary. It's the drama behind his rise, the shocking assassination of an emperor, and the ruthless power plays that turned the Roman Empire into a blood-soaked chessboard. And as one ruler falls, another rises. A series of bold, gritty leaders from the martial provinces of Illyricum. Each would leave an indelible mark, but at a cost no one could predict. What really happened during Claudius's battle near Naissus, where 50,000 Goths were annihilated? How did Aureolus, a usurper, spark the chain of events that led to a revolution in Rome's leadership? And who or what truly brought down the mighty Gallienus? This chapter of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire is more than history. It's a tale of betrayal, heroism, and the thin line between chaos and order. Stick around as we uncover the shocking truths, dissect the epic battles, and reveal the decisions that altered the course of one of the greatest empires in history. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Let's dive into Chapter 11, the reign of Claudius and the defeat of the Goths.
Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be heading back to ancient Rome.
Oh, perfect.
Specifically to the chaotic period that followed the reigns of Valerian and Gallienus.
Ooh, yeah.
Buckle up, everyone, because we're about to explore the lives and the impact of three fascinating Roman emperors. We've got Claudius,
Res.
Aurelian, and a brief glimpse at Tetricus.
Sounds good.
And for this deep dive, we'll be using Edward Gibbon's The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Chapter 11, as our guide.
Great chapter.
So to kind of set the stage, Gibbon paints a pretty bleak picture of the Roman Empire under Gallienus.
Right.
He describes an emperor who, shall we say, was more concerned with his personal indulgences than ruling an empire.
Yes. A lot of lavish parties, lots of spending.
Yeah, just a general disregard for the plight of his people.
And with that came a lot of, rebellions popping up everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Ambitious generals were vying for power, and barbarians were just relentlessly pushing at the borders.
Yeah.
Just taking advantage of the weakness at the center.
Like it was just crumbling from within.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet, amid all of this chaos, there was Claudius.
Yes.
A capable general who rose through the ranks through sheer talent and dedication.
Right, completely different from Gallienus, yeah.
And Gibbon actually tells us that Gallienus was deeply suspicious of Claudius.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
He even wrote to an officer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There is not anything capable of giving me more serious concern than the intelligence that some malicious suggestions have indisposed towards us, the mind of our friend and parent Claudius.
Well, that's very telling.
Isn't it? And then he even tried to appease Claudius with these lavish gifts.
Wow. Trying to buy his loyalty, huh?
Yeah, practically begging him to stay loyal.
Interesting. What a way to rule an empire.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, right?
Yeah, it seems like it. Because in the end, it was Claudius who ended up succeeding Gallienus.
Right.
But it was not through a typical transfer of power.
Of course not. It's ancient Rome. Nothing's typical, right?
Exactly. There always has to be drama.
Absolutely.
So it all began with a rebellion led by Aureolus,
Okay.
who managed to seize Milan and pose a direct threat to Rome.
Bold move.
Oh, yeah.
So how did Gallienus react to this?
So this forced Gallienus to finally confront Aureolus.
Okay.
And so there was a battle at the bridge over the Adda River.
Okay.
Aureolus was defeated, but managed to escape back to Milan.
Oh, so he lived to fight another day.
He did, yeah.
What happened next?
So Gallienus, determined to crush this rebellion once and for all, laid siege to the city. But this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Aureolus realized he couldn't win in a straight fight.
Yeah, that makes sense. He was outnumbered, outgunned.
So he started sowing seeds of discontent among Gallienus' own officers.
Oh, smart. Play the psychological game.
He spread all these rumors about the emperor's excesses. and his indifference to the suffering of his soldiers.
Classic divide and conquer strategy.
Oh, yeah.
Did it work?
It did. A group of officers, including the Praetorian prefect Heraclianus, conspired to assassinate Gallienus.
No way.
They lured him out of his palace in the dead of night.
Under false pretenses, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Under the pretense of an attack by Aureolus.
Ooh, sneaky.
And in the ensuing chaos, Gallienus was killed.
Wow. What a way to go.
Yeah.
Assassinated by your own men.
And the conspirators then quickly moved to proclaim Claudius as the new emperor.
Claudius. So that's how he came to power. It's like something out of a Shakespearean play.
Oh, right. Full of twists and turns.
Absolutely. So tell me about Claudius. What was he like?
Well, what's really striking is the complete contrast between Gallienus and his successor.
Yeah, I'm eager to hear more about that.
Claudius was a man of humble origin. He wasn't born into privilege. He was a soldier who earned his position through merit and hard work.
A true soldier's emperor.
Exactly.
Right, the people loved him.
Oh, yeah. There's even this incredible story that Gibbon tells about an old woman who approached Claudius,
Okay.
complaining that a general had unjustly seized her property.
Oh, no.
And it turns out that general was Claudius himself.
Oh, wow. How did he handle that?
He immediately returned her land.
Really? That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
You don't hear that kind of thing too often, especially from Roman emperors.
No, you don't.
It shows a certain integrity.
It really does. And it sets the stage for the kind of leader he was. He was a man of action, known for his military prowess and unwavering dedication to Rome, but also his sense of justice and integrity.
Right. He wasn't just a conqueror. He actually cared about the people.
He did, yeah. And he was going to need all those qualities because he was about to face one of the greatest threats the Roman Empire had ever seen, the Goths.
The Goths. They were a formidable force, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Gibbon describes their invasion as massive, right? Like something out of a nightmare.
Yeah, they had assembled this massive force. Gibbon describes a fleet of thousands of ships carrying an army of 320,000.
Wow. That's an incredible number.
Isn't it? A force so vast that it really had the potential to overwhelm the already weakened Roman defenses.
I can't even imagine facing something like that. So how did Claudius prepare for this?
Well, Claudius, though, wasn't one to shy away from a challenge.
Right. He seems like the kind of guy who would face things head on.
He knew the dire situation that he was inheriting. In fact, Gibbon quotes a letter Claudius wrote to the Senate.
Oh, wow. A primary source.
Uh-huh.
What does it say?
In which he details the depleted resources,
Yeah.
the various usurpers in other parts of the empire,
Right.
and the sheer overwhelming strength of the Goths.
He didn't sugarcoat anything.
He didn't sugarcoat it at all.
But I bet there was also a sense of determination in that letter.
Oh, yeah,
A refusal to give up.
definitely. There's this glimmer of defiance
Okay.
where he writes, conscript fathers know that 320,000 Goths have invaded the Roman territory. Whatever we shall perform will be sufficiently great.
Wow. Chills, literally chills. Talk about a rallying cry.
I know, right? Even in the face of insurmountable odds, he was determined to protect Rome.
What a leader. So how did this clash of civilizations play out?
So he didn't just talk the talk, he actually took action. He led the Roman forces in what became known as the Gothic War.
Okay, the Gothic War. And this wasn't just some, brute force clash, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was a testament to Claudius's strategic brilliance.
I was going to say, the Romans were known for their military tactics, right?
Oh, yeah.
So tell me, what was so special about Claudius's approach?
He wasn't just reacting to the Gothic advance. He was anticipating their moves. He was outmaneuvering them
Okay.
and ultimately securing a really decisive victory.
Let's look at the chess match.
Yeah.
Thinking several moves ahead.
Exactly, yeah.
Fascinating. So how did this strategic brilliance manifest in the war? Were there any specific battles or moments that stand out?
So the Gothic War can be viewed in 3 distinct phases,
Okay, break it down for me.
each showcasing Claudius's military genius. The first phase culminates in the Battle of Naissus.
The Battle of Naissus. Got it. Tell me about it. What happened there?
Now, initially, the Roman legions were overwhelmed by the sheer number of Goths. But Claudius had a trick up his sleeve. He had strategically positioned a hidden detachment in the mountains.
Oh, a surprise attack. I love it.
And at the crucial moment, this force launched a surprise attack on the Gothic rear.
That's genius, catching them off guard like that.
Oh, yeah. And the Goths, they were caught completely off guard, thrown into disarray. The tide of the battle turned, and the Romans inflicted heavy casualties.
Wow. So this surprise attack really changed the course of the battle.
Oh, yeah, it did.
It's amazing what a well-executed strategy can do.
Gibbon reports tens of thousands of Goths killed.
Tens of thousands. That's a decisive victory.
It was a stunning victory.
It sounds like Claudius had a real talent for deception.
Oh, yeah. He understood that sometimes the best way to win is to outsmart your opponent, to use their own strengths against them.
I like that. So that was the first phase. What about the second phase of the war? Did Claudius just let the Goths retreat after this defeat?
No, he didn't. The second phase of the Gothic War saw Claudius relentlessly pursuing the retreating Goths across the Balkan region.
So he kept up the pressure,
Oh, yeah.
not giving them a chance to regroup.
He knew that giving them a chance to regroup would be fatal, so he kept up the pressure, engaging them in a series of smaller battles, skirmishes, using his knowledge of the terrain to his advantage.
Smart move. So it was a war of attrition as well.
Yeah. He didn't just chase them blindly. He used his army's mobility, his understanding of supply lines to really wear down the enemy.
Claudius, the logistician.
Exactly.
And what about the third phase? How did the war finally end?
So finally, in the third phase, Claudius trapped the remaining Goths in the Haemus Mountains.
Okay. Trapped them.
And it was winter.
Brutal. Fighting in winter conditions is never easy,
No, it's not.
especially in the mountains.
No, it's not. The conditions were harsh. And the Goths, facing dwindling supplies and the threat of starvation, were forced to surrender.
Wow. So Claudius used the environment to his advantage.
He did, yeah.
It's almost like a siege, but on a massive scale.
Yeah, it is.
Instead of walls, he had mountains and winter.
He could have attempted a direct assault, but that would have been really costly.
Right. And that sounds like Claudius was very mindful of the lives of his soldiers.
He was. So instead, he used the environment, the elements, as weapons,
That's brilliant.
effectively starving the Goths into submission.
A bloodless victory. Well, as bloodless as you can get in ancient warfare.
And it was a decisive victory for Claudius.
And well-deserved.
It earned him the well-deserved title Gothicus, marking him as the savior of Rome.
Claudius Gothicus. That has a nice ring to it.
It does, yeah. It was a moment of hope in a very, very dark time.
It's what the empire needed, right?
Yeah.
A beacon of strength, a symbol of resilience.
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, that moment of hope was short-lived.
Oh, no. What happened?
After only 2 years as emperor, Claudius died
Oh, no.
from the plague.
The plague, of course. It always seems to find a way to disrupt things, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
So what happened next? Who took over after Claudius?
He left the empire in the hands of his chosen successor, Aurelian.
Aurelian. Okay.
Yeah.
He's a name that carries a lot of weight in Roman history. Known for his ruthlessness, his military reforms, and his short but impactful reign.
Yeah, and that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Already intrigued.
So stay tuned for that.
So Claudius's reign, even though it was tragically cut short, it did offer this glimmer of hope.
Absolutely.
But the empire was still far from stable.
Oh, yeah. Far from it.
All those threats that plagued Rome during Gallienus' time, they were still very much present,
Yeah.
both within, and beyond its borders,
Everywhere.
everywhere.
And it was into this maelstrom that Aurelian stepped, handpicked by Claudius himself to carry on this monumental task of restoring order and unity to the fractured empire.
Aurelian, a man who would leave his mark on history, for sure.
Big time.
A man of action, a soldier's soldier.
And like his predecessor, also rose from very humble beginnings. His father was actually a peasant from Sirmium.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how Rome had this knack for producing emperors from these unexpected places.
It's really interesting. You would think that with their very structured social hierarchy that it would have been like, the same families constantly in power.
Right. You'd expect a dynasty or something.
Mm-hmm.
But instead they get these outsiders who rise to the top.
It speaks to the opportunities that existed, within the Roman military system, even during such a turbulent period.
That's a good point. It wasn't just about who you were born to, it was about what you could do.
It really was.
So this Aurelian, he wasn't born into power, but he earned it through sheer grit, determination. What was he like as a leader?
He had a completely different style of leadership than Claudius. While both were very skilled military strategists,
Right.
Aurelian was known for his harsh discipline
Okay.
and just this unyielding determining.
The Iron Emperor.
Gibbon details some of his military regulations.
Okay.
And let me tell you, they were intense.
Mhm.
Gambling, drinking,
Went unallowed.
even stealing grapes from local vineyards,
What?
all strictly forbidden.
Wow, he wasn't messing around.
He wasn't.
Sounds like he had zero tolerance for any kind of indiscipline.
Yeah, he understood that a lax army prone to looting and just like general indiscipline would ultimately weaken the empire's defenses.
Yeah, makes sense. You can't have your soldiers running around doing whatever they want.
No, and he really believed that a strong military operating with just this unwavering discipline, that was the key to restoring Rome's strength.
Right, because at the end of the day, it was the military that held the empire together.
It did, yeah.
So how did he enforce this this discipline? Was it all just, words and regulations, or did he have a more, shall we say, hands-on approach?
He wasn't afraid to make examples of those who disobeyed.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
There's this chilling story Gibbon recounts about a soldier who seduced the wife of his host.
Oh, that's not good.
No.
What happened to him?
Aurelian's punishment was having the soldier tied to 2 trees that were then pulled apart, tearing him in half.
Oh my God.
Brutal.
That's pretty extreme, but I guess it sends a message, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And I think we have to remember the context here. Aurelian was dealing with a very, very real crisis.
Right. It wasn't just about, restoring military discipline. He inherited an empire riddled with problems.
Oh, yeah.
So where did he even begin? Like, what were his top priorities?
He tackled these challenges head on, and he was very methodical, very ruthless in his approach.
Okay. Sounds about right for the Iron Emperor.
He prioritized dealing with the Alemanni first, who had taken advantage of the chaos following Claudius's death to launch these raids into Italy.
Oh, yeah, the Alemanni. They were always a thorn in Rome's side, weren't they?
They were.
Pushing at the borders, testing the defenses.
They had already managed to reach as far south as the Po River, causing significant damage. And they were heading back north, laden with loot, when Aurelian caught up with them. But instead of a direct attack, he used deception.
Oh, interesting. How so?
He allowed about half of the Alemannic force to cross back over the Danube.
Uh-huh. Letting them think they got away.
And then he sprang his trap.
Clever.
He positioned his legions in this crescent shape,
Okay.
with the 2 horns advancing across the river, effectively encircling the remaining Alemanni.
Oh, so they were trapped.
They were
Caught between the army and the river.
caught between a hostile army and a very deep river. Yeah, the Alamannas were completely routed.
It's classic pincer movement.
Yeah, it is. And it was a very, very decisive victory for Aurelian.
He seems to have had a real knack for military tactics,
He did.
turning the tables on his enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to the Alemanni after this defeat?
So, after this crushing defeat, the Alemanni, surprisingly, tried to negotiate peace.
Really? After using their butts kicked? That's bold.
They even had the audacity to demand a large sum of money from Aurelian.
They were trying to extort him?
They were.
What did he say to that?
Aurelian, of course, rejected their demands outright.
Yeah, I bet he did. Not the kind of guy to be intimidated.
No.
So did that mean more fighting?
Well, unfortunately, the Alemanni, while Aurelian was busy addressing other issues, managed to escape by sneaking through a very weakly guarded section of the Roman lines.
Oh, no, they got away.
They did. I guess even the best laid plans, can go awry.
That's the thing about war, isn't it? There's always an element of unpredictability
Absolutely.
and a lot of luck involved.
Yeah. Aurelian, though, furious at this development, immediately set off in pursuit.
Oh, I bet he was angry. The Iron Emperor scorned.
He was not happy. And the Alemanni, realizing that they were being chased by the very vengeful emperor himself, tried to hightail it back towards Italy.
Oh, so back to where they started.
Yeah.
Did Aurelian catch them?
He did. What followed was a series of running battles,
Okay.
culminating in 3 major engagements. The first one took place near Placentia, and it almost ended in disaster for the Romans.
Oh, no. What happened?
The Alemanni, using their knowledge of the woodlands, launched a surprise attack at dusk, catching the Roman legions completely off guard.
Another surprise attack.
Yeah.
It seems like Aurelian underestimated them this time.
I did, yeah.
It's interesting how even the greatest commanders can make mistakes.
They can. And Gibbon actually describes it as a moment where the fate of the empire really hung in the balance.
Wow, that's intense. It shows how close Rome came to falling.
It does.
So what happened? Did the Romans manage to recover?
They did. The Battle of Placentia served as this very harsh reminder that victory was never guaranteed. But it also revealed the resilience and the adaptability of the Roman legions. They managed to rally, pushing back against the Alemanni and eventually regaining the upper hand.
And so they turned the tide again.
They did.
That's impressive.
The second battle took place near Fano in Umbria. Ironically, on the very same ground where Hannibal's brother, Hasdrubal, was defeated centuries earlier.
Wow. History repeating itself.
I know, right? This time the Romans were victorious,
Okay.
delivering a crushing blow to the Alemanni.
So Aurelian learned from his mistake at Placentia.
He did, yeah. He wasn't one to dwell on past failures. He analyzed what went wrong, adjusted his tactics, and came back even stronger.
That's the mark of a good leader, isn't it? The ability to adapt, to learn from setbacks.
It is.
So that was 2 battles down. What about the third one?
The third and final battle took place near Pavia, where the remnants of the Alemannic force were completely wiped out.
So Aurelian finally finished them off.
He did. Italy was safe, at least for the time being. And Aurelian, having secured his homeland, could now turn his attention to other pressing matters.
Right. But I imagine this whole ordeal with the Alemanni must have been pretty nerve-wracking for the people back in Rome.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety in Rome during this entire campaign.
I bet. I can picture these tough Roman senators, the guys who are supposed to be all stoic and unflappable.
Yeah.
But even they must have been sweating a little bit.
Oh, yeah. The Senate was desperate for any advantage.
Mm-hmm.
They even consulted the Sibylline books.
The Sibylline books, those are like the ancient Roman equivalent of a magic 8-ball,
Yeah.
right? Full of prophecies and cryptic messages.
Very much, yeah.
So they were looking for divine guidance.
Yeah. I mean, you read about these, tough Roman senators getting spooked by the thought of barbarian hordes at their doorstep, and it's almost comical. But it also shows how deeply these invasions had shaken the Roman psyche.
Right. They were losing that sense of invincibility that had defined Rome for so long.
Exactly.
So what did Aurelian do about this? Did he, embrace the superstition, or did he try to calm things down?
Aurelian, ever the pragmatist, humored the Senate and went along with the rituals and ceremonies prescribed by the Sibylline books. But, while he was busy appeasing the gods, he wasn't leaving anything to chance.
Okay, what do you mean?
He oversaw the construction of a new wall around Rome, a massive undertaking that really speaks volumes about the shifting priorities of the empire.
The Aurelian walls, a lasting symbol of his reign, and a stark reminder of the changing times. Rome, the once invincible city, now needed to protect itself.
It is a very sobering reminder of how vulnerable the empire had become, but Aurelian wasn't just about defense. He was also focused on restoring the empire's lost territories.
Right. He wanted to bring Rome back to its former glory.
He did. So with the Alemanni threat neutralized, he set his sights on 2 very powerful usurpers, Tetricus, who ruled over Gaul, Spain, and Britain, and Zenobia, the formidable queen of Palmyra, who controlled a vast territory in the east.
2 very different challenges. Tetricus in the west, Zenobia in the east. It's like Aurelian was systematically working his way through the problems plaguing the empire, methodically restoring order.
Let's start with Tetricus.
Okay.
Because he doesn't exactly strike me as the most intimidating figure.
Oh, what do you mean?
Gibbon describes him as more of a puppet ruler, controlled by his army. And interestingly, his mother.
His mother? Wow, that's an interesting dynamic.
It is.
So this Tetricus, he's not exactly a power-hungry tyrant.
No, he's not. He seems to have been more interested in a peaceful life. But circumstances kind of forced him into this role that he never truly desired.
A reluctant emperor.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did Aurelian deal with him? Did he just march in with his legions and, crush this rebellion?
No, he actually took a much more subtle approach.
Really? That's surprising.
Yeah. Aurelian recognized that a direct military confrontation with Tetricus would be very costly and potentially destabilizing. Instead, he initiated a secret correspondence with Tetricus, appealing to his desire for peace and offering him a very dignified way out.
Wow, that's clever. Play the diplomacy card instead of the war card.
He did, yeah. And Tetricus, tired of being a puppet ruler and just longing for a simpler life, jumped at the chance.
So what happened? Did they work out a deal?
They did. He staged a mock battle with Aurelian.
A mock battle? What do you mean?
Yeah, intentionally positioning his forces in a vulnerable position, and then at the crucial moment, he deserted to Aurelian's side.
That's amazing. Talk about political theater.
I know. And it allowed Tetricus to save face. avoid accusations of treachery, and secure a relatively comfortable retirement for himself and his son.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Aurelian gets his territory back without a fight, and Tetricus gets to escape the burdens of power.
Exactly. A bloodless victory for Aurelian.
And with Tetricus out of the picture, the Western Roman Empire is reunited. Gaul, Spain, Britain, all back under Aurelian's control.
It was a major achievement.
It really was. It showed that Aurelian was more than just a brute force conqueror. He was a cunning strategist, a master of playing the game of power.
He was. But Tetricus was just one piece of the puzzle. Now Aurelian had to deal with Zenobia.
Ah, Zenobia. The Queen of Palmyra. Now she was a different beast altogether.
She was. She wasn't a reluctant ruler or a puppet for someone else's ambition. She was a powerful, intelligent, and ambitious queen in her own right who had carved out a significant empire in the East. And Gibbon seems almost in awe of her, describing her beauty, her intellect, and her military skills.
She's a fascinating figure, that's for sure. She really defied those traditional limitations placed on women during that time. She became a major player on the world stage.
And her story is a testament to her political acumen and her ability to, navigate the complexities of power. She wasn't just a figurehead.
Right. She was a shrewd strategist, a formidable leader.
She was. So Zenobia, following the assassination of her husband, Deinothus, she took control of Palmyra.
Okay.
And she expanded her power,
Right.
eventually ruling over Syria, Egypt, and parts of Asia Minor.
Wow, that's a huge chunk of territory. She wasn't playing around.
She wasn't. And her rise to power is actually quite remarkable. She took advantage of the weakness of the Roman Empire during the crisis of the 3rd century, consolidating her authority, forging alliances with neighboring states.
It's almost like she was creating a rival empire in the East.
She was, and it inevitably put her on a collision course with Aurelian. This clash between these two titans was practically unavoidable.
It's like a clash of the titans.
It was.
So tell me, how did this confrontation play out? Where did they first clash?
The first major confrontation between Aurelian and Zenobia took place near Antioch.
Antioch, got it.
Zenobia, very confident in her military strength, particularly her heavy cavalry, she took the offensive. But Aurelian, always the cunning strategist, he had a plan.
Okay, I'm listening.
He feigned a retreat.
Oh, clever. Luring her in.
Drawing the Palmyrene cavalry into this very long and exhausting pursuit. And then, when they were tired and disorganized, he launched a surprise counterattack, shattering their formations and really turning the tide of the battle.
Classic Aurelian. Using his enemy's strength against them.
Exactly. And the Palmyrene infantry, left without the protection of their cavalry, was also routed by Aurelian's veteran legions.
So, a decisive victory for Aurelian.
A resounding victory for the Roman emperor.
But I bet Zenobia wasn't done yet.
Oh, no, she wasn't. She wasn't one to give up easily. She rallied her forces and prepared for a second showdown with Aurelian, this time near Emesa.
Emesa, round 2.
And the Battle of Emesa played out in a very similar fashion to the Battle of Antioch. Zenobia, again relying on her heavy cavalry, fell for Aurelian's tactic of the feigned retreat.
She fell for it again?
She did. She pursued him, her forces becoming increasingly stretched and disorganized, and once again, Aurelian seized the opportunity, launched a counterattack that led to another decisive Roman victory.
Aurelian 2, Zenobia 0.
Exactly. With her army shattered, Zenobia retreated to her magnificent city of Palmyra, deep in the Syrian desert.
Palmyra, the legendary city of the desert.
Hoping to withstand a siege,
Okay.
believing that her city's strategic location and impressive fortifications would give her an advantage.
It was a formidable stronghold.
It was, yeah.
And Zenobia was a tenacious leader. She probably thought she could hold out long enough for, Aurelian to lose patience, or maybe for something unexpected to happen. Maybe some other crisis would pop up and force him to withdraw.
Yeah, or that she'd be able to, get some reinforcements from her allies.
Right. Hope springs eternal.
But Aurelian was determined to crush this last vestige of rebellion. So he laid siege to Palmyra, but it proved to be a difficult campaign. The desert environment was very harsh.
Yeah, fighting in the desert is no picnic.
No, it's not. And the Palmyrenes were determined, and Aurelian himself was even wounded by a dart during the siege.
Oh, wow. So he was right there on the front lines, leading his men.
He was. We even get this glimpse into his mindset during this period through a letter that he wrote during the siege.
Oh, interesting. What does it say?
He expresses his frustration in it. He says, "The Roman people speak with contempt of the war which I am waging against a woman. They are ignorant both of the character and of the power of Zenobia."
That's fascinating, isn't it? It reveals his irritation with those who are underestimating Zenobia. He saw her as a worthy opponent, someone who deserved respect, even as he was trying to defeat her.
Despite Zenobia's tenacity, though, the siege was taking its toll. Supplies dwindled, reinforcements were intercepted, and hope began to fade.
Right. Sieges are wars of attrition.
They are, yeah. And realizing that her situation was becoming increasingly desperate, Zenobia made this very daring decision. She attempted to escape.
She tried to run. Where was she going?
She was hoping to reach the Euphrates River and find refuge in Persia.
So, escape to the east, make a new life for herself.
But Aurelian's cavalry, relentless in their pursuit, caught up with her just 60 miles from Palmyra.
Oh, so close, yet so far.
Zenobia was captured and brought back to Aurelian in chains, marking the end of her reign and really the effective collapse of her empire.
What a dramatic end to her story. From powerful queen to captive. What happened to her? Did Aurelian execute her?
Well, Palmyra, with its queen captured, surrendered soon after. And Aurelian, always the pragmatist, treated the city with relative leniency, sparing the inhabitants from mass slaughter.
Okay, that's good. He wasn't always a bloodthirsty tyrant.
No. But he did, of course, plunder the city's vast wealth.
Well, that's to be expected, right? To the victor go the spoils. So what about Zenobia? What was her fate?
Zenobia was brought before Aurelian, who demanded to know why she had dared to rebel against Rome.
Oh, I bet that was a tense encounter.
And her response, as recorded by Gibbon, is quite striking.
Okay, what did she say?
She said, "Because I disdain to consider as Roman emperors an Aureolus or a Gallienus, you alone I acknowledge as my conqueror and my sovereign."
Wow. She's basically saying, I only rebelled against weak emperors. You're the real deal, Aurelian.
That's a pretty clever response.
It is. It's a way of acknowledging Aurelian's power while still maintaining a sense of her own dignity.
Exactly. So, how did Aurelian respond? Did he show her mercy? Or did he make an example of her to deter future rebellions?
I'm on the edge of my seat here. What happened?
Well, Zenobia's fate is actually a complex one. Initially, she seemed to be determined to face her fate with dignity.
Okay. Maybe hoping to emulate Cleopatra's defiant end.
Yeah. But when she was faced with this angry mob of Roman soldiers demanding her execution, she faltered.
Oh, I can imagine. Even the strongest people could break under pressure.
They can. So, fearful for her life, she threw her advisors under the bus, blaming them for her rebellion.
Oh, no. Not a good look for Zenobia.
No. And tragically, one of those she betrayed was Longinus, a very renowned philosopher and rhetorician who had served as her advisor.
Longinus, a great mind silenced by political intrigue.
Aurelian had Longinus executed.
It's always the intellectuals who suffer in these power struggles.
They do, yeah. And he became a martyr for intellectual freedom in the face of tyranny.
What a tragic end.
It is. So Zenobia, though spared execution, was paraded through the streets of Rome in golden chains during Aurelian's triumph.
Ah, the humiliation. A queen reduced to a spectacle.
It was a very humiliating spectacle for a queen who had once challenged the might of Rome. But Aurelian, despite his reputation for ruthlessness, he showed this surprising leniency towards Zenobia after this very public display. He granted her a very comfortable villa near Rome, where she lived out the rest of her days as a Roman matron.
So, a relatively peaceful end for her, all things considered. And what about Tetricus? How did Aurelian treat him?
He also treated Tetricus and his son with unexpected kindness, allowed them to live in peace.
Really? That's unexpected.
It is, and even granted them positions of honor within Roman society.
Wow, so Aurelian wasn't all just iron and fury. He had a softer side, too.
It seems so.
So here we have Aurelian, the Iron Emperor. He's defeated the barbarians, reunited the empire, shown mercy to his enemies. He achieved what seemed impossible. Did he finally succeed in restoring Rome to its former glory?
Well, unfortunately, Aurelian's story doesn't have the happy ending that you might expect. Despite all of his incredible achievements, his reign was cut short by this very sudden and violent act.
Oh no. What happened? Another barbarian invasion. A palace coup.
The circumstances surrounding Aurelian's death are actually shrouded in a bit of mystery and intrigue. Officially, he is said to have been assassinated by his own officers.
Assassinated by his own men. How did that happen?
So they were victims of this forged document, implicating them in a treasonous plot.
Wait, So he was killed because of fake news. That's crazy.
I know. It seems that misinformation and its consequences are not just a modern phenomenon.
That's a good point. It's a reminder of how fragile power can be, even for someone like Aurelian.
Exactly.
I mean, this guy was a military genius. He was seemingly unstoppable,
Yeah.
but he was still vulnerable to the intrigues of the Roman court.
He was. But some historians actually question this official narrative. They suggest that Aurelian's death might have been orchestrated by members of the Roman elite who resented his autocratic style and his reforms.
It wouldn't be the first time a powerful leader was taken out by those closest to him.
It wouldn't, no. Aurelian, in his quest to restore order and strength, might have made some very powerful enemies along the way.
Right. His strict discipline, his military reforms, they probably didn't sit well with everyone,
No, definitely not.
especially those who benefited from the old corrupt system.
Exactly. There's even an account of this rebellion by mint workers in Rome that Aurelian brutally suppressed.
Minch workers, that's interesting. You wouldn't think they would be a threat to the emperor.
No, you wouldn't. And some historians believe that this rebellion might have been more than just a labor dispute, perhaps a symptom of some deeper social and economic tensions that Aurelian's reforms had actually exacerbated.
So his attempts to fix things might have actually backfired.
They might have. It suggests that, restoring order to the empire was just one part of the challenge.
Right. The real problem was addressing those deeper issues, the social and economic inequalities that were tearing Rome apart.
Exactly.
It's like putting a bandage on a gaping wound. It might stop the bleeding for a while, but it doesn't address the underlying infection.
So looking back on Aurelian's reign, how should we judge him? Was he a hero who saved Rome from collapse? Or was he a tyrant who ultimately sowed the seeds of his own destruction?
That's a tough question. I mean, there's no easy answer. He was a complex figure. He did some great things, but he also did some terrible things. He was a product of his time.
He was. It really is incredible to think about the impact that these three emperors had on the Roman Empire in such a short span of time. We've got Claudius rising from obscurity to become this unexpected hero who repelled the Goths.
Yeah.
Aurelian, the iron-fisted ruler who reunited a fractured empire.
Right.
And then even Tetricus, the reluctant emperor who was caught in the midst of it all.
It really is a testament to just how quickly, fortunes can change, especially during those times of crisis.
Yeah.
One moment, the empire is on the verge of collapse,
Yeah.
and then the next, it's experiencing this resurgence of strength and unity.
Yeah, and at the heart of these very dramatic shifts, it's individuals,
Yeah.
each with their own motivations.
Right, their own strengths, their own flaws.
I keep coming back to this contrast between Claudius and Aurelian.
Uh-huh.
They both faced these incredible challenges, and they both achieved some remarkable things. But their approaches to leadership were so different.
Yeah.
Claudius seems to have been driven by this genuine desire to serve Rome, to protect its people.
Right.
He even returned that old woman's property when he realized that he had unjustly seized it.
That anecdote about the old woman is just so powerful.
It is.
It speaks volumes about his character. He wasn't just concerned with, power or glory.
No.
He had a strong sense of justice, a willingness to do what was right, even when it meant admitting his own mistakes.
And it's interesting because you could argue that Aurelian was the more, quote-unquote, successful emperor.
Yeah.
I mean, he reconquered these vast territories, stabilized the borders, implemented these sweeping reforms. But there's just something about Claudius's victory over the Goths that feels just as crucial.
Right.
He essentially prevented the Western Roman Empire from being overrun at a moment when it was incredibly vulnerable.
You're absolutely right. It's hard to, overstate the significance of Claudius's victory. I mean, had he failed to stop the Goths, the course of European history, it might have been dramatically different.
It really could.
And, while Aurelian's achievements were definitely impressive, there's no denying that, his methods were often quite brutal, right? He ruled through fear and intimidation, and that kind of leadership, well, it can have these unintended consequences.
Makes you wonder if there's a connection between Aurelian's iron-fisted rule and then his ultimate assassination.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Did his relentless pursuit of order and control, his willingness to make enemies among the Roman elite, did that ultimately create the conditions for his downfall?
It's certainly a possibility. Perhaps if he had been a little bit more, if he had adopted a more balanced approach,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more diplomacy along with all that military might,
Yeah.
things might have turned out differently.
It's that question that I keep thinking about, what makes a truly great leader?
Right.
Is it about achieving your goals, regardless of the methods that are used?
Sure.
Or is it about something more? About ruling with justice, with compassion, about serving the people rather than just wielding this power over them?
That's a question that, it resonates even today, doesn't it?
It does. And the Roman Empire, with its long line of emperors, it's this fascinating case study in the complexities of leadership. You've got emperors who were brilliant military strategists, emperors who were very shrewd politicians,
Right.
emperors who were known for their cruelty, emperors who were revered for their wisdom and justice.
And sometimes all of those qualities were found in the same individual.
Exactly. So looking back on these three emperors, it's hard to definitively say, who was the best, who was the most successful.
Right.
Each faced unique challenges, and they left their own mark on history.
Yeah, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges.
Exactly.
They're all fruit, but they're fundamentally different.
And that's what makes studying history so fascinating.
Exactly.
It's not about finding these simple answers or labeling individuals as heroes or villains.
Right.
It's about understanding those nuances, the complexities,
The gray areas.
the often unintended consequences of human actions.
Right.
It's about grappling with these, big questions about the nature of leadership, the impact of individual choices on the course of history, the delicate balance between order and freedom.
And sometimes it's about just acknowledging that history doesn't always offer these clear-cut answers.
Yeah.
Take Aurelian's assassination.
Yeah.
Gibbon presents the official story,
Right.
the forged documents,
Right.
the panicked officers.
Yeah.
But he also hints at the possibility of this deeper conspiracy.
He does.
He leaves us with more questions than answers.
It reminds me of those historical documentaries where they present all this evidence and then they're like, okay, now you decide.
Exactly.
What do you think really happened?
It's an invitation to engage with history on this deeper level,
Mhm.
to think critically, to weigh the evidence, to form our own interpretations.
And maybe that's the most important takeaway from all of this. History isn't just a collection of facts and dates. It's this living, breathing story.
Yeah.
Full of intrigue, mystery, and these endless opportunities for exploration and interpretation.
Well said. I think that's a great way to wrap up our deep dive into the reigns of Claudius, Aurelian, and, Tetricus's brief appearance on the stage of history. We've explored their triumphs, their failures, their complexities. And I think we can all agree that they left a lasting legacy.
We've definitely delved into those challenges that they faced, those decisions that they made,
Right.
and the impact that those decisions had on the course of Roman history.
And hopefully we've sparked your curiosity, encouraged you to learn a little bit more about this fascinating period.
I know I've learned a lot, and I'm leaving with so much to think about.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of history.